Thanks everybody for joining us. My name is Joe Dunbar. I am on the sales specialty team here at Starin. Today is Thursday, October 20th. Had to check that real quick. I'm losing track of the days already, guys. It's just going by us so fast. We've got our partners at Neat joining us today to show us kind of the latest and greatest, and more importantly, to be able to answer all your questions, right? As my cohort Chris always says when he hosts these, this is really your opportunity to engage with the manufacturer directly, ask questions. Nothing, no question too silly or stupid that we can't bring up. And if we can't get answers right here for you guys, we'll make sure we jot those down and follow up to make sure that we do get answers. A little housekeeping. We are doing a drawing at the end, so please stick around and make sure you get your chance at that. Neat is giving away some awesome products, so we'll let them tell us about that a little bit. And yeah, that's kind of all there is to it, just to get us kicked off. So we've got Nick Burton and Brian Dunat. I hope I'm saying that right, Brian. I didn't butcher that.
You got it.
Yeah, both from Neat. I'll let you guys each say hello and introduce yourselves a little bit before we get going.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Joe. And to the Starin team, thanks so much for having us today, and to all of our partners out there. Just a big thanks. We're celebrating 3 years this month at Neat, and it's been just quite a journey. It honestly feels like a lot longer than that, frankly. I've been around Neat for just about 2 years now, and it's just been amazing to see how we've pulled the brand through the market with the help of our partner Starin and our whole partner community. We've just really accelerated quite a bit, and it's just thanks to all of you. So really happy to be here today. As Joe mentioned, we are giving away a Neat frame, so stick around for that drawing. We've got a really cool promo around the frame that we're celebrating our 3 years with, so we'd love to talk a little bit more about that as well. And with me today, I've got Brian Dunat, who's going to go through some really important updates. We've speaking of time flying and so much changing in 3 years, we've had a lot of recent announcements at Microsoft Ignite last week, some new innovations on our products that have just been released. So looking forward to getting everyone up to speed there, because we are moving quickly and innovating quickly, as we always try to do. So with that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Dunat.
Cool. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, so I appreciate it again. Brian Dunat, I'm a product specialist here at Neat. I've been here just over a year. And as Nick just mentioned, like the velocity of what is changing within Neat is incredible. When I started at Neat, we had the bar, the board, and the pad. Since then, we've launched Frame, Bar Pro, Team Certification, and a whole host of other updates that have been deployed to these devices. So it's super exciting to be here. I love doing this. I love meeting with our partners, really making sure that they understand it. For the purposes of today, what I was really hoping to do, and I promise I will not bore you guys to death, because if anybody has attended any of my demos, I like to make this really interactive. So I have a couple of things teed up that I'm going to show you guys. What I am going to do for anybody that's new to Neat is just do a quick overview of our company, kind of where we started, really what is our big differentiators, and then jump into a couple live demos, and then talk about all the new enhancements that have come out here in the last few months. Just because although we send it out and we have it in our release notes, I don't know that everybody's really aware of everything that keeps changing. So with that, I would also just say, we did say throw things in the chat and the Q&A. I honestly don't have a problem stopping in the middle and answering that. So maybe Nick, I'll ask you to kind of be my co-host here and chuck them my way as they come in.
I think that's a good way to on those for you guys. Yeah.
Awesome. I think it's a good way to set the stage too. Yeah, please. We want it to be interactive. Ask us whatever questions you'd like. You've got both of us here for the extended time of the webinar, and even afterwards too. We're happy to have conversations afterward. If you want to have any one-on-one chats, more than happy to do so. But yeah, thanks so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, Brian, if you want to go ahead, kick it off. Tell us a little bit about Neat. And you guys, man, you're not kidding how quickly you've just taken kind of the market by storm, and people have adopted you guys. So it'll be interesting here to see kind of how it started and where we've gotten.
Yeah. So, and I would say the speed of velocity also comes in our PowerPoint presentation. So we've got some new decks and some new material. So hopefully it's not a rehash of anything that many of you have seen. But again, history of Neat, just real quick. founded in 2019. As Nick said, we're celebrating our 3-year anniversary, which is super exciting. Really, that company was founded based on a request from Eric Yuan from Zoom. He wanted a simplified enterprise grade video conferencing soundbar to really simplify the Zoom rooms that were getting deployed. He wanted to take out all the complexity that comes with a lot of the traditional AV rooms, Mac Minis, Intel NUCs, USB cameras, USB mics. Wanted that all in one device. And that's really where we got the request. Now, what's unique about that is there was a lot of our competitors in the marketplace at the same time, but they came to us. And the reason for that is we have such a rich heritage in the video conferencing space that goes back over 20 plus years. So to the likes of Tandberg, where you had some of the legacy telepresence room systems, the big immersive room systems, right? Those are the things that a lot of our R&D software engineers worked on. Some of them had gone on and worked at places like Econo and Pexip and really understood the interop. So not only from a camera hardware perspective to how do we make these meetings more effective and interop with all these different platforms? So that's really kind of where we got our start. We are headquartered in Video Valley in Oslo, Norway. So if you do happen to see an email and it says @neat.no, that's us. It's not a typo. So make sure you're double checking that if you're shooting Nick or I an email. Really, our focus, though, has always been on what is the business challenge. This is one of the things that I was so excited about joining Neat around, because for 20 plus years, it's all I've ever focused on is a great end user experience. So when we think about that, one of the first requests we had is it's got to be simple out of the box, right? If any of you have deployed a Neat device, I don't know that it gets much easier. You can see a lot of the unboxing videos we have. We get a lot of feedback that it's very Apple-esque because you can get a Zoom room or a Teams room up and running in a matter of minutes. So that's one of the first things, right? And then we wanted to do other things like we'll show you guys symmetry. And that's really our patented technology where we wanted to bring that meeting equality back into the meeting spaces. We've got Neat Sense, so we can actually have environmental information inside of our rooms. And then we also have other things like our audio processing that's in our devices. And the cool thing is the philosophy that we have is if we're going to build an experience, we're going to put it on a device, and that device is going to cover just about every meeting space you can think of, from a personal room all the way up to those large rooms. So when we look at this, like this product portfolio, and again, we're working with partners every day. We get some and they're like, this doesn't seem like a lot. And I'm like, yeah, we just made your job really, really easy. It's literally 4 video appliances, 1 other device that actually serves as dual purposes. And again, those devices are going to be the entry point to your room as a room scheduler, to the room controller, to a personal video device, which is what we're giving away today in Neat Frame, all the way up to the large rooms with our Neat Bar Pro. And we're going to talk about that. What's new and what's really exciting is as of Ignite, which just happened 2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks
it's all
ago,
blending
yep.
together. This is like my first week back in the home office here in quite a while. So it's, to your point, Joe, it's kind of like, let me fact check this against the calendar. Yep. Okay, good. What's really exciting is we got Neat Bar Pro and we got Neat Frame certified for Microsoft Teams. So really, I kind of joke around about this, but in or out of the box setup, this is your opportunity. Choose your own meeting adventure, right? Select Zoom, select Teams. You get that native experience across all of our devices. And I'll talk about a few of the caveats there with like Neat Frame, for example, and Teams mode. So what does that look like? Well, guess what? It looks just like what I showed you on the devices slide, where we've got everything. This is just running the native Zoom experience. And then if we go forward, it's the native Teams experience across all of these devices. Okay, so really, and the beauty of all this is, if you got a customer today that's on Zoom, but they're gonna go Teams, they can use Neat. When they're ready to make that switch, they do a quick factory reset, flip it over to Teams, get their new licensing and assign it. Or if you get a customer that's on Teams today and they're like, hey, you know what, we'd rather be using Zoom because, we're missing some things, no problem. Factory reset, you're back to Zoom. No hardware upgrades, nothing that you need from us. We provide you with that firmware and that software already loaded up on the device. Very, very easy. So just know that from I would say almost like a buying protection, you have that, right? You really have that investment protection with any of these Neat devices.
Hey, Brian, if I may,
Yeah.
fantastic that you guys are getting the certifications going with Microsoft, and that stuff has been for a little bit. I know we get asked about it regularly. One of the questions we frequently get is in the interop and the ability to do both of these things, and you mentioned it and kind of alluded to it. There is a little bit of a setup or configuration in the beginning of each of those processes. So I just want to be clear, like this isn't necessarily something where you would flip back and forth between these two experiences, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And we'll talk about that too with the direct guest join capabilities that now are certified and available on our devices. And I'll get to that here in a couple of minutes.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So again, when we talked about those devices and really making it kind of 4 video appliances that really cover everything, you've got Frame as that personal video appliance. You've got that in even some of those smaller focus rooms, phone booths, right? And I'll show you a couple of examples of how that works. Then you've got the collaboration room with our Neat bar, which I have or our Neat board, which is running behind me. Great use case, right? Everybody loves to use whiteboarding. You've got that, but then on top of it, you get the added benefit of all the camera technology, microphone, speakers that's built into bar is packed on top of that 65-inch interactive whiteboard. So that's huge. And then we jump into the large meeting room, which is going to be our Neat Bar Pro, right? And that's going to cover those much larger spaces. So it's pretty exciting. And as I mentioned, we're celebrating our 3-year anniversary. So I'm going to let Nick talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think the flyer is pretty self-explanatory, but for the month of October and November, we are running a promo for buy 2 frames, get 1 for free. So it's a really great promo. We can stack this with deal registration as well. So keep that in mind. So really, this is for our partners to go out and make sure they have the opportunity to get the frame out there to their customers very easily. So yeah, any questions on this, feel free to throw some in the chat. Happy to talk through it.
Awesome. So let's get into the fun stuff, right? So again, those are our devices. The cool thing is across all of our devices, you get the same experience. The biggest thing that we learned over 20 plus years in the video conferencing space is there's a lot of different ways to find people in a meeting space, right? I could do facial recognition. I could do speech. What we chose to do is actually something completely different. And that is we're looking for the human object detection. And that's what drives our patented technology, Neat Symmetry. So we are looking for human objects within the meeting space, and that is what we are tracking, okay? So the advantage to that is even if I turn around here and I walk back here, like I was going to point to something back here, that camera knows where I'm at and it's going to continue to follow me, which is really nice, right? Because as I move around, it's going to be very, very smooth. And the whole reason for this is, again, when we think of like those immersive video conferencing systems that were probably up to $500,000, the problem is it's very prescriptive. You have to sit in one spot. You have to look right at the camera. You can't really turn because it's not a dynamic room system. What we did was took that experience and delivered it in this all-in-one soundbar that we have, which is Neat Bar, which was the first product we brought to market. Now, what happens when the room dynamic changes? So if I bring out Virtual Colleague, what you're going to notice is that the camera is actually going to pan out and it's going to do the group auto framing. And it's going to put Adam and I together here, right? So pretty cool and pretty table stakes, right? So even if I move over here, what you're going to notice is that the camera is going to pan out and it's going to show both of us, okay? Cool, everybody does it. We have it. But here's the experience, and this is the point I always try to make with our customers and our partners is my home office is 12 by 12. So I've got Adam basically 3 feet from the bar. I'm standing 12 feet away. It's only 4 of us on video. I'm going to say Mark is, but he's not. It's okay. But what you're seeing is if I was standing back here and I was looking, for the participants, you could tell that somebody in my room is talking, but it's really hard to see, right? And if Nick was going to be like, hey, we should do another promo, and I was going to smile, it's going to be really hard to see me, right? So this is where symmetry jumps in, which is where we do the individual object detection and cropping. Now what happens is, now it just cropped us, and put Adam and I together, and we've eliminated all that dead space to really bring that meeting equity. So as Joe and Nick are on camera, if they're looking at it, it looks as if Adam and I are on our own cameras, right? That's the experience we want. Now, what happens when the room changes yet again? And yes, I really, really enjoy my job because it is so fun to have these guys as my virtual colleagues. So I'm going to bring out Farley as well, and he's going to hang out with me. Now, here's the experience of the three of us, the Three Stooges, basically, as Nick would probably refer to that as, the three of us in this meeting space. But again, we're present. Everybody can see it. Without symmetry, this is the experience. This is what you would see. This is what a lot of customers are fearful of, and why we're not seeing the hybrid work take off, because people are afraid to go back into the room. I use that example because I know friends and family who are going back into the office and they're like, we don't know how to join the meeting. The meeting experience is terrible in the room. Nobody does it. So what do? They go back to their desks and they do it via the webcam. So this is really how we solve that in these meeting spaces. Okay. Now you might ask, hey, you guys aren't doing anything with facial recognition or voice triangulation or anything like that. How are you making sure then when in those new meeting spaces where you have glass walls, things like that, that you're not picking up people that are walking by, or it seems like the new hot thing is to put pictures on walls and things like that. So the way we solve for that is actually through what we call subject boundary. Okay. Now this is a setting on our devices, and I'm going to flip over and do a quick preset. So give me 1 second. I'm going to show you, if we go into our settings on our device, I'm going to use our boundary feature, which is basically going to give me the ability to define a virtual width and depth of the meeting space. So you can see that I have Adam here. Here's my sliders, right? So if I have this fully maxed out, Chris, Adam, myself, we have green boxes. Essentially what that's doing is boundaries looking at that and going, okay, you haven't told me to come in or narrow down the room size at all, so I'm going to capture everybody that I see. But as soon as I adjust these sliders, and if I make that change, now all of a sudden Chris at the far back of the room has a red box. That is what boundary will do. It will tell our camera not to go that far out to do object detection. Okay? So then if I was to join the meeting, if I did have symmetry turned on, it would only be Adam and myself that would actually be present and would be seen. So that is, when people ask, like, what is the main differentiator for Neat in the video conferencing space? A lot of that is just based on our camera technology, our ability to do that neat symmetry, but then also control what is actually seen by the camera with subject boundary.
Hey, Brian, if I can jump in real quick. So we do have a couple questions coming in. We're going to hold on to one of them for a second, but one of them is directly related to symmetry. And the question from Scott was, how many individual people can be viewed in symmetry within a room? And then if there's any variance between Zoom and Teams.
Sure. So the first question I'll answer is, there is no difference between Zoom and Teams. Okay. Because this is all happening within our camera hardware and our camera AI. So whether you are on Zoom, Teams, or using BYOD mode, which we'll talk about in a minute, that camera technology is going to work. As far as how many people we will see, when I had Chris and Adam, you guys saw us cropped 3 of us, right? That's basically what we call zones. And we will support up to 8 individual zones. Okay, so think of taking my video right now and just dice that box up into 8, okay? What we will do is individually try to crop people and put them in their own spaces. As we get into larger rooms where we have Neat Bar Pro located, what we will do is if Adam and I were, let's just say Adam came in and he sat down right here. Let me switch this back on. What would actually happen is the camera would crop Adam and I together because there's some video overlap, right? And it's going to be kind of noisy if you're watching that on the far end. But as soon as then we would break apart, then the camera would see, hey, I can get Brian individually, I can get Adam, we'll do them individually.
Fantastic. I tell you, it's hard to keep a straight face when you pop in Adam Sandler looking like that right now. I am curious, are you, in terms of enabling and disabling symmetry, are you just doing that on the pad right now?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So a lot of what we tell our customers, and you can do this, I mean, very easily on our pad itself. And I'll show you real quick. Let me toggle this on. I'll switch this over to this mode. And then I will show you. So this is basically on the Zoom controller. I have this ability to click camera control. And when I click up camera control, I have manual. So I can do all the things like, I can play around with board preset, desk preset, no big deal, table stakes, right? I can go into auto framing and I have this first feature turned off, which is doing group auto framing. So it's just Adam and I together, like I said. As soon as I toggle this on for multi-focus framing, which is really our symmetry technology, if I could click that, there we go. Then that is what is actually going to turn on symmetry. And then the last feature that's with Zoom is actually Smart Gallery. And that is if I hit multi-stream, we'll see how well this works on the webinar. I don't care. I like demoing this stuff live and we'll see what happens. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And it doesn't look like it's going to. So
yeah, I was curious what the parameters would be for that. But then at that point, right, we would get the chop and then it's in Zoom. Then it's Zoom doing
correct.
this. Right.
Yep. So what happens now is in multi-stream or in Smart Gallery mode, what we are able to do is we actually get 3 video streams to play with Zoom. The first one's going to be the group auto framing of the entire room. And then what we do is we take however many symmetry crops we have, and we equally split them up against the other 2 video feeds. So if it was Chris, Adam, and myself standing here, the one shot would be the group shot of the room. And then it would be like Adam and I in one view, and then Chris in a separate. And we're exploring if we're going to take that even further to go to like 6 streams, because really the only thing that does is it just gives us more real estate to show more of the people that we're cropping within that meeting space itself.
The 8-zone limitation, I don't want to say limitation, the 8-zone feature set that you were speaking about with symmetry, does that apply to all of the products, or what products is that available on?
Yes. So that symmetry is actually available on all of them. And even if I had, I came onto this device and I opened up, see here.
And that's your frame that you're on there, right?
Correct.
Right.
So now you can see here's the personal view. I'm sorry, well, maybe you could, but
there. No, I just
if I move that there. Yeah. So now this is giving you that ability to basically set up boundary right here, right? So if I brought out Adam, it'll take a second. Now it sees Adam. And again, exact same setup is what I had before. And you'll even notice it's actually picking up Nick and you on the screen. And now it's actually putting the red filter around you guys.
See that? I noticed that when you were setting that up. I appreciate you elaborating on that. That question came from Scott as well. So Scott, that's available on all the products there.
Yeah.
There was a question about BYOD mode as well, so we don't need to sidetrack this, but I believe you will be covering a little bit about that, so we want to make sure we get that addressed.
Like I said, if you've been on any of my demos, we go on side tangents all day, every day. So BYOD mode, we initially kind of brought that to market in a beta mode. I think it was March or April. We called it USB pass-through. We've now officially launched it on bar and board. It's called BYOD mode. It is a setting on the device itself. So let me zoom here. Don't know why my preset wasn't saving there, but this is on our device. There is a setting right here that's now called USB mode. If I toggle that on, essentially all I have to do is take USB-C and HDMI to my laptop, connect it. It will essentially shut down like the Zoom Room app or the Microsoft Teams app, and then connect all the camera to my laptop. added benefit, and this is really important because we get this question a lot, is this is solving a need right now while we're waiting for Zoom to bring Miro into the Zoom Room apps on board, or Zoom Room Touch. If you do that and you have a Windows laptop, does not work with Mac, and that is just a limitation of Mac drivers for touch screens. If I connect a Windows laptop to this device, I get full touchback control. So the way you solve for that is, hey, I use this device to have my Zoom meeting, my Teams meeting. That's great. Now, all of a sudden, let's say L&D's walking in and they're like, hey, we need Miro because we like the flow charts and the designs for all the workflow. No problem. They plug in their laptop. They bring up Miro. Now they can fully touch and collaborate on that device right there.
When we disconnect from the laptop, then from the hardware, will it then revert back to the Zooms or Teams application?
Yes, that's exactly what happens.
So for a lot of our customers and partners who like to, that's certainly a question we get a lot, is how can we work back and forth between the two platforms? There's a lot of ways to kind of get around and go through that, but this is a very simple and elegant way where you can set up your customers with whatever platform they prefer and then offer them BYOD mode to host meetings that come from various other platforms for the occurrences where those happen, right? Because those are usually a few and further between. So we don't necessarily need it all the time, but that's awesome.
So I literally just reset this device before we hopped on. I just enabled USB pass-through. I have a HDMI to USB-C cable, and then I have a USB-C to USB-A cable because that's what my laptop has. Here's the last slide that I was showing when we were connected here and sharing in the bar. So I have that ability to, if I wanted to go back and look at something, I can do that.
That's awesome. Man, that was quick. It just jumped right over.
That question you asked, what happens when I unplug, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pop this out. You're going to see it's going to relaunch Zoom. And that will actually lead me into one of my next quick demos. So let me show you this, because hopefully this is something you guys are going to want to see. Here's Neat Frame. It's running in virtual kiosk, right? This just reset back to my Zoom room. So I put this in kiosk mode, basically virtual receptionist. Right here, I have call Brian's board. So if I was walking into a building and I wanted to call, I could call. Now it's calling up here.
Yeah, get rid of that audio loop that's coming at us.
So I just wanted to, trying to do this like really quick, but that's the use case, right? So whether this was a Zoom room appliance, or let's say Nick was my receptionist, he just answers all my questions all the time. So I'll just kick it to him. The experience is I walk into a space, I have Frame sitting up there. I click that button, it calls Nick. Nick's like, all right, cool, I'll unlock the door for you. He unlocks the door from his desk remote. I get into the building, hang up, comes back to this screen. That device goes right back to its normal mode.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, great feature. I appreciate you elaborating on that a little bit.
Yeah. Any other questions in the chat right now you want me to address, or I can keep cranking through?
I was going to hold on to it for a second. We do have a couple questions coming in. And I mean, just like you, man, I'm all about if people want to talk about it, then let's talk about what they want to talk about.
Absolutely.
There was a question from Jim. Are there plans for models that will accommodate the new 21:9 aspect ratio? So, I don't know if you guys have any of that in the works or what you can possibly share.
Yeah, so I will tell you, as far as that goes, when you think of bar and board or bar and bar pro, we have 2 external display outputs on bar. We have 3 on bar pro. A lot of that will be dependent upon the connected displays that we bring into that to move from that traditional 16:9 to, I think it's 21:9, right? For Microsoft Front Row. Pretty sure that's where this question's headed.
I'm sure.
So as long as the format of those displays changes, that's fine. In the immediate feature, we do not have something planned as a specific board for Microsoft Front Row, going away from that 65 all-in-one touch. Now, the one thing I will caveat is if, depending on how you lay out the room, if you decided that you wanted to do touch, on the back of all of our devices, we always have an optional USB-C port, okay? As I mentioned, we use that for USB pass-through on bar and board, but you can also use that on bar or bar pro if you have an existing large format touch display. So if you wanted to kind of build your own neat board, because I mean, let's face it, like some of those large capacitive touch displays aren't cheap. I think our cameras are at a great price point, but if you want to reuse that existing investment, that's fine. All you have to do is connect that USB-C to the touch display and HDMI, and now you could have one touch display and then one content-only display connected to it.
You know, that raises, appreciate that. And that raises an interesting question. And I'm not trying to stump you. I'm not going out of my way. And maybe you'll notice, maybe you won't. So do you know what the output resolutions are of those HDMI cables and those HDMI outputs and like what we're limited to? I would guess typical, right? Full HD, UHD kind of resolutions.
I believe on the output, because it's different on the inputs. On the outputs natively, I think we do 4K at 60 frames per second. And that would be on bar and bar pro. On board, it's different because board is really intended to be that all-in-one device. So we don't support external displays. We have two inputs though. So one input is for content sharing, which is the one that I have, that I connected my laptop to show you the BYOD. That will automatically start sharing content into Zoom or Teams. The other one is like a local content source. And that would be something, we see this in like the education space where you might have like a teacher bringing in like some type of a streaming device, like an Apple TV to show something, and they don't want it to show through a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting. You just connect that to the local HDMI input on the back of board.
That's you beat us to the next question, which was if the bar and bar pro and board support like a wired content ingest.
Yes.
So we got to that. Awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
One thing I will just clarify on that. We are Microsoft Teams Room on Android devices for Microsoft Teams. That said, today there is a limitation on Microsoft Teams on Android devices that do not support audio in over HDMI. So what I mean by that is if I pulled up a YouTube video to show you guys, we were in the Zoom meeting, that full audio is going to come through in a Zoom room. In Teams, you're only going to get the content. That is something that Microsoft's planning to bring on their roadmap. And if I remember correctly, it's probably actually, I don't remember. We see a lot of these. So yeah, I can't remember. It's either the end of this year or it's the first part of 2023 is when they're planning to bring audio ingest over HDMI.
Awesome. Microsoft is a big ship. Takes a while to turn that one, and we all know how that goes. So we'll just say front half of next year is kind of when we're hoping for it.
We just run with the ropes and like lasso and like throw on, and we're like, let's hold on and see what happens.
That's just it.
We totally get it, man.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. And the last question we currently have up and relative to what we were talking about is just recommended touch monitors. And I guess to that effect, obviously the board is kind of your go-to touch solution with Neat. And we were really talking about, I don't want to say legacy scenarios, but a situation where you have an existing touch board that you want to utilize. So I would imagine you guys, the recommended board is the Neat board. And beyond that, it's just about making checking functionality. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's awesome. Really where we get into, as a company, we don't really certify accessories that, people want to connect to our devices. We do have an internal list. Like if you're working on a deal with a customer and you're working with the Neat territory manager and probably one of my peers on the product specialist side, you can ask and we can provide some of those recommended devices. But we always say it's a two-way street, right? If you deploy it and it's working on an existing touch display, let us know so we can continue to maintain that list internally. That's kind of our approach with a lot of those third-party accessories. And it just comes back to our philosophy that we want to be an all-in-one device because if we control it, we're going to fully support it, right?
Yep. And you started talking about this right at the beginning, referring to, it's almost Apple-esque, and they were kind of one of the first big companies to really make sure that they were thoughtful and intentional with the entire solution, which is, I think, something that's really important and neat. So even from the unboxing and the way things are packaged up and what's included and not included, all that stuff is kind of considered ahead of time. So just to cap off that question about recommended touch boards, obviously the Neat board is kind of the go-to. And if you're in a situation where you have an old one, let us know and we can help you determine whether or not that's, going to work or going to work well or and that sort of thing. And certainly I have to say it because, of who I work for, but we do have LG panels as well, and I have done some touch panels in cooperation with some of the Neat products before, so it does work quite well.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this, but we talked about that simplified out of the box experience, and you touched on it right there, Joe. Like, we ship everything you need to deploy a Zoom room or a Neat room system. So if you're thinking Bar or Bar Pro, you've got a VESA mount, you've got a screen clip, you've got a desktop mount. I always like to use this as a joke. Hopefully none of my colleagues are on here where I'm going to get in trouble, but I'm going to show it. When I first opened this, I was like, what is this? This is like IKEA for video conferencing. Then I happened to stumble across this really cool QR code on the back of it, scanned it, and I was like, oh, sweet. This is the tabletop mount for my Neat bar. All right, I know what's in the box. That is literally how easy we try to make that. On every single Neat component you get in the box, QR code, scan it, it'll tell you exactly what it is, and then it'll take you to the part in the mounting guide that will tell you what you're using that piece for.
I think you certainly struck a chord with me, having spent some time in the field, and I think anyone else on the call who's been in the field knows that sometimes it's a little too obvious and too easy. So great call out, and I'm glad you pointed that out. Appreciate that. That's absolutely. At the moment, that's all we have for current questions. Folks, please do keep them coming. Oh, Scott hit us with another one. Hold on.
Oh, geez.
I know this is Scott's going. He's got good questions today. Scott, we appreciate it.
I think he's going for the frame. That's why he's asking all these questions.
Yeah, well, this one is really more about design guidelines for microphone coverage, camera coverage, et cetera, between a couple of the products, and especially relative to symmetry. So maybe I think in your slide deck, actually, you might touch on a little bit of this, but camera and audio coverage and capability, I think, is kind of what we're looking at here.
So what I would tell you for any of our partners is take a look at the partner portal. We have a document there that we call Neat Devices and Spaces. It will walk you through literally every one of the devices with all the high level specs. So it's going to cover what's the horizontal field of view, what is like how many outputs do we have, how many microphones are in there, what's our recommended room size for that from a coverage perspective. What I will tell you, this is just, again, being in this industry for a long time, testing it. I mean, room acoustics always make a difference, right? The bigger the room, the crappier the acoustics, the worse the experience is going to get. What I would say is frame is really intended for that, like up to like maybe 3 to 5 people tops, because this only has 3 mics in an in-fire array. Okay. So it's not going to pick up audio in a bigger space. Neat board, I always say 8 to 10 people, roughly 12 feet wide by about 20 feet deep. Okay. That device has 5 mics in an in-fire array. Great speaker bar. Funny thing, I actually did an event with some colleagues in Canada. We were in a bar. Brian was remote. I was right here. And they were like, we can barely hear like what's going on because there's so much commotion underneath us. And this guy asked the question on bar 30 feet away, and I could hear him clear as day. And they're like, oh, you're going to need somebody. I was like, no, I heard you. Like, okay, you want to know how many displays we support and Teams with Bar Pro? And the guy was like, wait, how did you even? And he's like waving his hand. I'm like, yeah, I see it back there. I know who it was. So I would just say that like those are the rough recommendations for that. And then Bar Pro, I say roughly 20 feet wide by 35 feet deep is about the Bar Pro recommendation.
For symmetry, kind of within that, the symmetry functionality is going to work within those parameters, right? So
Correct.
There's not any extra special considerations to take into for symmetry to function.
No, and this is the big thing I want to call out. We talked about at the beginning. We don't do anything with voice. So if you think of our cameras, almost think of it as like audio is one track, video is another. We don't care about what's happening. I mean, we do, but we don't, because it's not impacting what our cameras do with symmetry, right? So whether I'm talking or I just turn around and I move around back here, it doesn't matter where I'm at, that camera is going to find me. And I just realized I probably have manual camera control on, so it didn't show. But again, you can hear my audio very clear. And this is 12 by 12. Literally outside my window, my neighbors are putting in pavers. So that concrete saw is like, great.
That's pretty impressive. And earlier I was going to point it out, so I'm glad the question came up. Like, you were walking around, camera was following you, but even in situations where you're turning your back to, your device that's picking you up, we could still hear you loud and clear. And there wasn't really any issue with that, which is obviously really important, because in the real world, people aren't thinking about staying in frame or making sure they can be heard. They just want to do their work. Good question.
Said,
go ahead.
You're actually bringing up a really good point that I want to bring up, which is with Neat Bar Pro. So, as I said, our kind of design philosophy is we want to be an all-in-one device, right? But what we're starting to see is that our customers really love our technology, and what they love is the consistency of the experience from a personal device to the large rooms. Where we were struggling is some of these larger rooms, our camera, no problem with symmetry, but from an audio perspective, right? We're getting put into rooms that are probably a little bit too big, right? Like 40 feet long. In the latest release that we just pushed out, which is Monaco, we released a beta feature. And it is a beta feature of USB-based audio, okay? Basically what happens there is, as long as you have a DSP or you have a mic that has AEC built into it, if you connect that to the USB-C port in Zoom, you can go in and you can toggle, what mic, what speaker you're using for the room. In Teams, you do that in our system settings. What device do you want to use? It's an all or nothing in Teams. You could then use third-party mics and speakers. So in those much larger spaces where we realize we need to augment the audio, camera's great. That's what we're doing. So we've actually been working with a lot of the common hardware manufacturers that are out there. Everybody will probably name drop. I won't on this call. We're getting Bar Pros to them. We're getting their DSPs in. I actually have 2 Pelican cases sitting out in the hallway right now for post this call to set up and do some more testing. To really be able to, again, we're not going to certify it, but we want to set it up and test it out and see how it works. Because again, if we can bring our camera technology in there, our R&D team, we talked about at the beginning, like how much innovation and how quickly we're releasing things and getting certifications in the last year, we're going to continue to improve the audio on Neat Bar Pro. I mean, the audio, the video, it's just going to continually get better. But if you have customers that already have that investment and they're like, we're not going to put Neat in there unless, you guys can do it. Well, now you can. So again, that's where I would recommend work with your Neat territory manager and their product specialist, and they can help with that discussion.
I just wanted to recap that. So you said this is a beta feature in a couple of products right now, and you guys, I assume, are working on bringing it to the platform.
It is only on Bar Pro. We have no intentions right now to bring it to Bar Board, because really like I said about the whole bar scenario when I was doing the demo, we feel that the mics and speakers for Bar and Board even are better than what they're currently being spec'd for. It's Bar Pro is where
that's where those larger installations tend to fall. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. And, it's worth pointing out, too, I mean, there have been new features added for folks who got hardware some time ago. So the firmware updates keep coming with new features. And this is just another one on a long list of stuff to come, hopefully.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, too, I mean, it's not that the Bar Pro is lacking anything as far as mics or speakers go, right? I mean, it's really, and as obviously, you got to be a little careful with like concrete specs of distances and things like that. But, really what the recommended, furthest participant back that our engineers throw out there is, 30 to 33 feet, 35 feet back on that Bar Pro as it sits, as it comes out of the box, right? So I think if you look at, from the external microphone or speaker standpoint, it really, gets down to those much larger spaces than that, or the much more acoustically challenging spaces where that can really come in and just revamp that audio a bit more. And it is exciting to partner with, it's always great to have alliances, and I think we can, build some cool things from it. But it's another thing too to talk to your Starin specialist about as well, as you get into those projects. And then the last thing I wanted to mention really quickly, because speaking of testing and different room sizes and obviously making sure you're making the right specs for the customer, and everyone's happy at the end of the day, right? That's what it's all about. So our philosophy, from the go-to-market standpoint, is the see, try, buy process, right? And part of that see and try process is a 30-day evaluation program that we do for qualifying opportunities. If you've got, a qualifying opportunity there, we get those products out there. You can the partners still transact on those opportunities. Starin still transacts with the partners on the opportunities. And I know, Joe, I'm sure you could speak a little bit about Starin's try and buy program as well. But there's really a couple great ways for you to get our products in your customers' hands very easily, without jumping through too many hoops, which is a really cool thing about working with Starin and Neat, two agile companies that really, want to get product out there. And then another thing to add, we are still fully stocked as well, because I don't want that to slip. I know, we're getting to the top of the hour here, but we are fully stocked across the U.S.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We do have a couple more questions coming in that I want to make sure we touch on, and great points, Nick. We, one of the questions I came across earlier was about inventory. Right now at Starin, we do have all the products in stock, and Neat's well stocked as well. So certainly get in touch with our inside sales team or your key account manager to, get more info and help them get you set up for your particular needs. And yeah, on the demo process, certainly Neat has mechanisms and vehicles to make sure that we get products in your hand. We have mechanisms and vehicles to make sure that we can get products in your hands. So whether you're a system integrator and you just want to put this on your bench to test it out for a couple of weeks and see how it does, or you're working with a partner and an end user who has a project that they're looking to flush out, we can certainly help you guys out with that sort of stuff in any way. Scott came through with a question about kind of the recommendations about audio and video, and he was asking about adding acoustical requirements. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I got to imagine that each situation is so unique and just so difficult to predict that I think that would probably be a tough one to provide. But I will say, you made the point earlier that a lot of your gear is set up to exceed expectations, and I personally have been pretty impressed at like the distances and quality that we've seen out of these devices. So I certainly have not run into a situation yet where we're using a Neat product and it's like, oh, this isn't cutting it. But I love to see that you guys are looking for the third party integration.
Well, and I would tie that back, Joe. I mean, this is like a big thing. I mean, Nick just touched on it. The See, Try, Buy in our PEP program, like that's the perfect time. If you've got a customer where you're like, I don't know if that's going to be a bar pro, get engaged with your Neat team. We'll get you guys set up. We'll get them demo gear. They can test it out, and then they can move that around to many different rooms, because literally it's that easy to move these devices around. It's not a 47 component device that you've got to deploy and it takes, 2 guys 8 hours to build out a room. It's literally, if you can take that out of the box and plug in an HDMI cable, a network cable, and a power cable, you kind of got a working room. So test it out.
Absolutely. We did touch earlier, Scott, in terms of like a list of approved partners or vendors. It sounds like you guys are working with plenty of partners to find, flush out functionality and those types of things, but weren't keen or don't have plans to produce a kind of like a certified list or anything, correct? It's really more.
We don't. That's why we're debating right now internally if we. My personal opinion is we should just create like a Cowboy Junkies like hidden part of our website where we can put some of this stuff where we kind of cowboyed some solutions that worked. I don't think that really jives with the Neat story. So hopefully this isn't recorded and nobody in marketing sees this, but really our idea is we have it internally. I have peers, product specialists they have access to the same file. We're all sharing that. So if you're working on one with a customer and you're kind of wondering what it is, let us know, and we'll give you a list of what we've already tested and we know works, as well as like what some of the limitations are, right?
That's fantastic, and appreciate that. And ultimately, it comes down to the partnerships and those relationships. We really want to make sure that specific cases and all of the peculiarities of it are addressed and looked at when we're trying to offer any kind of recommendations with that regard. So, as nice as it is to have a clean list to just go look at, give us a shout and let's just make sure that what you're looking at in particular is going to work. We do. We've got a drawing to do. I want to make sure, Brian, was there anything in particular you want to touch on before we
I do want to show one last thing real quick, and then I will turn it over to the drawing, and it's good because it ties to frame. So as you guys know, we just showed you what this looks like in Zoom. When I was at Ignite 30 minutes before we were getting ready to present, we got the letter from Microsoft that we got certified 2 of the 3 use cases that we have. Okay. Yeah. And then people are like, how does hot desking work? And I'm like, that's a great question. I don't know. Let's figure it out.
Let's find out.
Yeah. I mean, this is how it goes. That's why it's like, it's just like rampant, how fast we roll stuff out. So personal mode, this is a Teams display. Okay. So it's a different category device than the Microsoft Teams Room on Android. So the reason I point that out is you will see there are more apps available on the Teams display because that was the original category that Microsoft brought out for like phones, right? And doing the better together over Ethernet or Bluetooth, connected device. In personal mode, I'm using my Office 365 identity. So as long as I'm a licensed user, and my organization allows it, I can sign in, I can see calls, voicemails, I can see my OneDrive files in read-only format. I can see Teams like a web view. If I have a Windows 64-bit machine, I can actually connect it. And then I get an augmented experience, meaning if I was standing in front of my laptop and I started my Teams meeting, it joins my laptop so I can interact, share files, chat, things like that. But all the audio video moves off my laptop and onto frame. And then I have full pinch to zoom capabilities, touch screen, I can whiteboard on it during a call. It's awesome, okay? The second use case is what I'm showing here, and this is hot desking. This is a big ask for a lot of Microsoft customers. And a lot of the Microsoft marketing materials actually show neat frames, so that's why I wanted to show this real quick. This is now going to leverage a resource account and a new common area license that Microsoft's going to be rolling out over the next few months into all the tenants. Today, you could use the common area phone license or CAP, and you'll notice that really all I have is the call capability up here. And the reason for that is this could be a phone device. So if you have that deployed, emergency services, things like that, somebody walks in, has to call 911, they could do that. But what I can do is I can actually tap on reserve. Now it brings up how long do I want to reserve this device for. So I could pick my time, and when I click reserve, what it's going to do is book the room, it's reserved for a guest, and then I have sign in. And when I click sign in, now it's going to allow me to sign in, and it's going to allow me to use my credentials. Even if this was registered to Starin, and I came and visited you, Joe, and I was like, hey man, I just need a place to post up for a couple hours and knock out some emails and take a few calls, I could sign in with my identity. Underneath, it's still running the Starin resource account common area license. As soon as I sign in, all my stuff comes down, right? So nice. I have access, and I have my calendar, so I could just click join, hop into a call, everything's great. And when I'm done, about 10 minutes before at the top, I get a ribbon notice that'll say, do you want to extend your time or do you want to end? And as soon as if I hit end, it just signs me out of that device.
That's awesome. So you really, like you mentioned, in your hot desking situations, you can still leave this set up and configured in whatever normal application you might use it, but then the added flexibility of that kind of hot desking on top of it without goofing anything up there. That's really great.
So I just wanted to kind of call that out. That is actually really cool. A lot of customers are asking about it. So that's all I wanted to show. I'm gassed. Brian, you itch. I'll turn it over to Nick to give out the free stuff because he's always the cool dude that gets to do all the fun stuff. Danny Warbucks, it's all yours.
No. Hey, thank you so much, Brian. And thanks everyone for the great questions and all the time. And for the drawing, I'm going to have to give it over to my good friends, Joe and Mark, since they've got access to the attendee list and all of that. So I'll let you guys take that away. But again, we're giving away a neat frame today. Really excited to do it. Hopefully, whoever wins it will get some great use out of it. And if you need to walk through it, you've got a couple guys here that will be more than happy to talk you through it once you receive it and things like that. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, Nick, thanks so much. I just pulled up our spinner here, and I'm not screen sharing it. Here we go. I should make sound effects or something.
Are you in there now, Joe? Did you access? Is that why it took you so long to pull that up? You slip your name in?
That's right. In a couple of spots. Here we go. Suzanne Garrity. Hopefully I'm saying that right. You are
nice.
The winner. So we'll follow up and make sure that you get that out and get your proper address and everything like that. We do have a handful of questions that we did not get to, and we appreciate everybody, A, joining us, B, being so engaged and flooding us with the questions. That's really how we want these to go. For these questions that didn't get answered, we got them taken down, and we'll follow up with you to make sure that we cover everything. And as always, if you have any follow-up questions or want to talk more about NEAT, please give us a shout. Starin.biz is our website. Nick, Brian, where do we find you guys out in the world? Are you on the Twitters or email, NEAT website? How do we get a hold of you guys? LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. You check out our website, neat.no. And as Brian kind of threw a joke out there earlier, it is not a typo. It is, we are based in Norway, so you'll find our emails are at .no. You can email us at partners@neat.no. Our partner team's monitoring those email addresses. And then, of course, find us on Twitter and such under #NEAT or NEAT meeting spaces as well. But just want to say thanks again. We really appreciate the time. And if we can help with those follow-up questions, Joe, please send them our way. And we're more than happy to jump in with whoever would like to.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. I'm Joe Dunbar with Starin. Catch our next town hall. If you weren't able to miss all this one, we'll get the recording posted up for you on our website. And give us a call, reach out if you have any questions. We can help you out with NEAT in the future.